In this lesson, we're going to talk about graphing on the coordinate plane using a table of values, and we're going to review a little bit and then actually do some graphing on the coordinate plane. The first thing that we need to recognize when we're graphing is that this time we're going to be working with equations that have two variables, and the format of the equations is going to be y equals mx plus b. These equations are also called linear equations. That means we're going to be graphing a line. Root word of linear is line. So we're going to be graphing lines. So to graph our lines, we're going to use a table of values. And the table of values is where we're going to get our points. So we're going to use the table of values, and our method, or here's our equation that we're going to work with, y equals x minus 4. And you're going to make a table of values for each equation that you work with, and that will give us the ordered pairs then that we're going to in turn graph. So let's go ahead and make a table of values real quick. The next thing we're going to do, and you need to fill this in your notes, we're going to choose 3 values for x, okay? And I have put under there that you need a positive, a negative, and 0. And we'll talk about this in a second, why we need that. So in my table of values, I have 4 columns. One for my x, which is the number that we've chosen. We're going to input it into the expression x minus 4, which is from your handout. We're going to get a number for y, or compute a number for y, and that will give us our ordered pair. So I'm going to replace x with 2, so now I have 2 minus 4. Well, what is 2 minus 4? It's negative 2, so my ordered pair is 2, negative 2, and I'll go graph that in a minute. Then I'm going to put 0 in for x, 0 minus 4. Well, 0 minus 4 is negative 4, so my next ordered pair is 0, negative 4. And then my last ordered pair, I have negative 2, replacing x with negative 2, minus 4 more, I get negative 6. So this ordered pair is negative 2, negative 6. Now I have these 3 points to graph. Okay, so now I have a question for you. Why should we use 3 points to graph a line? So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and write this down on your paper somewhere, or this question on your paper somewhere, and come back tomorrow with an answer. Why do you think we should have or use 3 points to graph a line? Okay, so let's say that you've graphed your 3 points and they don't form a line. What do you think you should do? Okay, well, first just relax, take a deep breath, and look at your ordered pairs and look at your graph. Okay, maybe you have just graphed an ordered pair incorrectly. So check to make sure you have graphed the ordered pairs correctly. Sometimes we just get the vertical and the horizontal mixed up, okay? So don't erase anything. Look at your graph, look at your ordered pairs. If you've graphed them correctly, then the next thing you need to do is go back and check your calculations. It could be that you missed a negative sign somewhere. It could be that you multiplied incorrectly. It could be that when you were working with a fraction, you might have done a cross cancel incorrectly. So that would be the second thing that I would do, is check your calculations. But just don't erase anything until you've just checked to make sure that you graphed correctly, because sometimes you just graph something incorrectly. And if that's not the case, then go back and look at calculations. Okay, so now not all our equations just have whole numbers. What if the equation that we're working with and we need to graph has a fraction? What are we going to do with that? Well, here's the deal. You need to look at the denominator of the fraction. I don't want to graph halves and thirds and fourths. I want to try to graph whole numbers. It makes my graph easier to read and easier to manage. So I'm going to look at the denominator. And if the denominator is a 2, then I'm going to use multiples of 2s so that I can set up a cross cancel. If it's a 3, then I'm going to look for multiples of 3. So let's go ahead and get that table set up and plug some numbers in for x. Well, I need 3 values of x, so since the denominator is a 2, and I'm going to look at multiples of 2, so I could use 2, 4, 6. I want to try to stay with smaller numbers closer to 0 because I want to keep my graph small enough that I'm not graphing one graph per page. So I'm probably just going to use 2. I need 0 because I told you for your 3 values, one of them should be 0. And then for my negative value, let's use negative 4, and we'll see how that works. Okay? You're going to use cross cancel. I'm going to replace x with 2, but I'm going to say 1/2 times 2 over 1. Okay? So my 2's are going to cancel out and just leave me with 1. So now I have 1 plus 2, and that equals 3. Well, the 0 is easy because anything times 0 is 0. So 0 plus 2 equals 2. Oh, and let's write those ordered pairs. I forgot to do that. 2, 3 and 0, 2. And let's look at the last one. Now I have a negative 4, so I'm going to write 1/2 times negative 4 over 1. Well, when I cross cancel here, this becomes a 1, but this becomes a negative 2. So now I have negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. So this ordered pair is negative 4, 0. So when you have fractions, try to use multiples of the denominator. That way that you can graph whole numbers, okay? There may be some times that we can't get away from a fraction, but we try to keep as many whole numbers to graph as possible, okay? Okay, here are your 3 got it problems. The first equation, y equals 2x minus 3, that's pretty easy. Just pick 3 values, positive, negative, and 0, that are close to 0 so you can have a small graph. Equation number 2 has a fraction, 1/3, so you're going to look for multiples of 3 in order to get rid of that fraction. So you could use 3 or 6, stay close to 0 again so that you can have a small manageable graph. And then the last one, be careful, you have y equals negative x minus 4. So whatever you put in for x, you're going to take the opposite. And if you notice in your instructions, you're going to need graph paper, and you're going to put your table of values right next to your graph. That way you're not flipping back and forth from other pieces of paper. So one graph paper, you should be able to get all 3 of these on the same graph paper, front and back. So good luck with graphing these equations.